After a complete change of heart, Saul, the persecutor of the Jesus movement, had now joined their ranks. After causing a bit of trouble with his newly found zeal for the faith, he'd been sent to Tarsus to spend time with the believers and learn the ropes. But his was not the only odd conversion to Christianity. A Roman centurion, known as Cornelius, as well as his entire household, had become Jewish converts and could often be found praying or helping the poor. While he'd gained his neighbours' respect, it seemed that someone very important had also taken notice. In a vision, an angel of God appeared before Cornelius and told him that God had seen his good deeds and that he was to send his servants to fetch someone very important and bring him back home. This man was called Peter, and he was staying in the fishing town of Joppa. Cornelius was not the only one to have a vision this week, however. Peter had gone on the roof of Simon's house to pray while his meal was being prepared, and mid-prayer he fell into a trance and saw what saw like a sheet fall from the heavens. Images of all sorts of animals appeared on it, and Peter was commanded to kill and eat them. Some of the animals that Peter had been shown were unclean for Jewish people, and Peter objected 3 times on the grounds that his people, by law, were forbidden to eat the animals shown on the sheet. God's answer was that Peter should not declare unclean what he had declared clean, and then ended the vision with a message to expect visitors. Peter began to ponder this unusual vision, and he was then told that there were men at the gate asking for him. These were Cornelius' servants, who explained that they'd been sent to find him. The next day, Peter, Cornelius' servants, and some of the believers from Joppa set off to the centurion's house. He was greeted by the Roman officer, who knelt before him, but Peter told him to stand up, as he was just a man, and wasn't divine. Inside the house, Peter found a small crowd waiting for him. He mentioned that according to Jewish law, he shouldn't really be here, as he was not supposed to associate with non-Jews, but he'd only come at his Lord's behest. Cornelius then said that he had sent for Peter because he too had been given instructions by God. Peter then addressed the house, and during his preach the Holy Spirit descended upon them, and they all began to speak in tongues. The believers that had joined Peter looked on at this in shock, but now Peter knew exactly what his vision had been all about. Jesus' message wasn't just for Jewish people, and here was his proof. The new converts were baptised, and Peter stayed with them for a little while before moving on. The leaders of the church in Jerusalem had heard of Peter's dealings with the centurion and sent for him so he could explain himself. Peter obliged and met them, recounting the conversion of Cornelius and the events surrounding it. Remembering Jesus' words about baptising people with the Holy Spirit, the believers realised that their mission may be wider than just the Jewish community, and indeed could be a greater commission than they'd even imagined. Other rumours regarding Antioch had surfaced, where believers who'd run away after Stephen's death had found success preaching to the non-Jewish Greek people there. The believers then sent one of their best, Barnabas, to go and investigate, but before he arrived there, he remembered an old acquaintance who this might be beneficial for, their previous enemy called Saul. Picking him up from Tarsus, the two set off for Antioch to teach the new converts, and it was here in Antioch that the word Christian, or follower of Christ, was used to describe the believers of Jesus. Meanwhile, back in Jerusalem, things had begun to heat up again. Herod, the current ruler, had begun to crack down on Christians. James, one of the original disciples, met his untimely end at the end of a sword, and Peter was also arrested and was put in prison to appease the upset community. But, in a repeat of previous events, Peter was released from prison by an angel of God. Revealing his escape to the shocked believers who'd thought him surely dead, he left to go incognito until Herod died shortly after. From here on out, the focus of the book of Acts shifts. Instead of its focus on the original believers of Christ and its disciples, it shifts its gaze upon its most recent convert, Saul, who at this point had begun calling himself Paul, as kind of a way to differentiate himself from his violent past. He and Barnabas set off on a journey to go and preach the message to all who would listen in light of recent events, and it is these journeys that we'll look at in the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. In the next episode we'll be looking at Paul's legendary missionary journeys across the ancient Roman world. Be sure to tune in next time to find out all about his crazy adventures. As always, like, share, subscribe, and there's info in the description if you want to learn more. But until next time, grab a drink and keep asking questions.